Hi, I'm Anders Mikkelsen, and I'm going to do a reaction video to this RingCentral exposed video. And I'm an independent third-party consultant, and I help clients manage vendor spending. And I focus primarily on vendors like RingCentral for telecom, voice, and data services. So that includes WAN, internet, as well as UCaaS and good old POTS lines, and also help with mobile services. So let's dive into this video and I'll try to give my frank reaction as we go along.
If you use RingCentral, you're making a bad business decision.
Okay, so my first gut reaction is I don't think you can universally say that you're making a bad business decision. It could be that you are, and it could be that you have better options than working with RingCentral. But I have to know the specifics of your deal with RingCentral. And but definitely I will agree that the scenario he's going to lay out is not going to be ideal.
Now, I don't typically like being so hyperbolic on my channel, but I am absolutely sick and tired of seeing businesses getting ripped off left and right.
And I agree. I'm definitely sick of that too. And that's why I got into this area of consulting, helping companies manage vendor spending, because I was sick and tired of seeing companies get ripped off by big firms like AT&T and Verizon. And I wanted to make sure that they were not getting ripped off anymore.
And we recently came across one of RingCentral's customers that has been literally throwing tens of thousands of dollars at them unnecessarily with absolutely no recourse.
So it is definitely something which happens all the time that no matter who you're working with, that it's easy to throw away tens of thousands of dollars, especially if you're spending over $100,000 a year. We see that all the time.
So I felt like it was a good time to show everyone a perfect example of the type of unfair business practices that are provided to customers by RingCentral.
So this will be interesting to see what the unfair business practices are, how unfair they really are.
Now I want to be really upfront about my own biases here, right? Our bread and butter at Crosstalk is providing customers with voice over IP solutions for their businesses. RingCentral is one of our competitors. And you might say, well, of course you're going to bash RingCentral.
In my case, I'm not a vendor. I work for my clients, so that's why I figured it might be helpful to see a third-party assessment of this.
Because it's going to benefit your business. And yeah, you know what? It might. But also, people who are unaware of why RingCentral is so bad may watch this video and realize that there are much more cost-effective alternatives that actually provide a higher level of service for a much lower price. And why is that a bad thing?
Now, I definitely agree that for most people, there probably are more cost-effective alternatives than what they're using, especially if it's for something like VoIP services. But that said, it really depends on your specific situation and what kind of good pricing you've negotiated and whether or not you're
I mean,
taking
I really hope.
and whether or not you're taking advantage of some of the more advanced features that RingCentral or other firms offer. I think what he's offering definitely sounds like it could be a good deal for a lot of clients as well.
Hope that anyone watching this video who's also a RingCentral customer realizes that they're getting ripped off. And if that's the case, then yes, absolutely, please take a moment to look at what Crosstalk has to offer. But before you dismiss this video as just a guy who stands to profit from complaining about other VoIP companies, listen to this story that I'm about to tell you, and then try to tell me that you think RingCentral is doing nothing wrong or that they're a good choice for consumers. So we were contacted about a month ago by a medium-sized engineering company who had about 65 employees back in 2020. We're going to call this company Mom and Pop Engineering. When COVID hit, like many businesses, Mom and Pop Engineering had to scramble to figure out how they're going to keep all 65 of those employees productive while they're working from home. So
So I think it's one of the big things too, right? Is this particular client, they had to scramble, they had a limited amount of time to figure out what to do. So in a pinch, they asked for help from RingCentral, and sounds like they got some help.
decided to sign up with RingCentral. They already had a whole bunch of Polycom phones that were connected to an on-premises PBX system, and RingCentral let them sign up for services while still keeping all of their existing phones.
So that's definitely an example of, they're working together and not necessarily an ideal situation long term, but this was something which the client needed at that time so that people could work from home, but they didn't have to dismantle their old phone system.
Right? So fine, okay, so far so good. As part of our discovery process when we're working with new customers, we'll often ask for a copy of their most recent phone bill so that we can get a clear picture of the services they have and what prices they're paying. This, by the way, is a free service that we offer to any business.
So this is definitely something which a lot of companies offer. They'll get a copy of your current bills and then they'll try to work to help you switch vendors to them. And when they have the pricing, that helps them get a sense of what they have to charge you, and they can come in like a little bit below or maybe a lot below what you're currently paying today. And that could be great for them. Personally, what I do is I do the same thing. I do a bill review of all of the different bills. I bring in the contracts as well. And then I look for cost savings like billing errors and unused services, and also if there's better pricing options. But my incentive is not necessarily to move you to another vendor. If you want to move to another vendor, I would definitely help you with that. But I would say most of my clients, we just help them save a ton of money while keeping the vendor. And that makes things a lot easier. Then they don't run the risk of trying to work with a new vendor and finding out that the billing with the new vendor isn't that great either.
Who's looking to switch providers. When we got the RingCentral bill from mom and pop engineering, we realized that they were being charged way more than they should be.
So looking at those, let me see if I can go back a little bit.
Pop engineering,
We can see that they were being charged about $300 a line per year minus a discount. So that's a lot less than $30 a month per line, and it's unlimited, et cetera. So we don't, I'm not going to go into what features are here or compare them with like crosstalk's features and what's better. Obviously, it depends on the situation. And obviously, in this story, working with crosstalk was better for the client than working with these lines, which are presumably way overpowered and way more expensive than the equivalent functionality.
Realized that they were being charged way more than they should be. Over $2,200 a month.
So this is really interesting here too, because you can see the really high amount of taxes after discounts and prorates. That's 60,000, sorry, $6,000 with $21,000 for the actual service. So that's somewhere between 25% and 33% um, of your costs. Basically your taxes, et cetera, are add on an additional 25 to 33%. A lot of people won't know this going into the contract. They'll think that, oh, what I see quoted is just what I have to pay, but you actually have to negotiate all those additional costs. So you really need to ask your vendor to tell you upfront, what are all the different taxes, fees, and surcharges that I'm going to pay? You want it in the contract. You also want it in the contract that if they don't tell you about something, you don't have to pay it. I think that's fair. And then you can know the total cost of ownership, and then you can do a true apples to apples comparison between different vendors and see what the total cost of ownership will be for whatever solution you decide to go with.
For phone services, keep in mind that they owned their own phones, all right? This didn't include any sort of phone rental costs. It was just for services. They had 65 users, 92 total DIDs, and 2 meeting rooms.
Yeah, so here we can see what the price is per line. It's $23 for unlimited and $14 for basic. I have no idea if the client could get away with just using basic at this point. And maybe I've bought like 22 lines. It's possible. It's maybe not. I don't know. I'd have to do a real analysis, but that's something I would definitely examine as if a lower level of service would have worked for this client.
So like, conference rooms. Just these 2 Zoom room style conference rooms was costing them $363 of the total bill per month. By contrast, an actual Zoom Rooms license is $499 per room per year, or about.
So this is definitely a good idea. Why don't you see if there are other vendors which are known quantities which have an equivalent product for a lot cheaper? So I don't know the exact details of these two alternatives, and I don't know enough to tell if this is an adequate replacement, but that's something I would definitely research. Whenever I have a new client, I would double check and say, okay, what are they actually using in terms of these services? What features are they expecting? And then see if there's a less expensive equivalent. And good thing about something like Zoom, they're probably familiar with the company. They may already do business with them, so they can just buy some more services from another vendor where they're getting a better deal. We do this all the time for our clients because a lot of our clients are already using a lot of the big telecom vendors. So we just help them move some of the spending between the vendors to make sure they get the best deal.
About 66 bucks a month for 2 Zoom rooms. So they're already paying almost $300 per month extra just for those 2 conference rooms. The first thing to realize about this customer's phone bill is that it is really high for 65 people and 92 DIDs. But that's not the worst part of the story. COVID hit mom and pop engineering really hard. Throughout 2020, they had to downsize from 65 employees to just 24 employees.
Do you know what? Yeah, let's go look into that issue of is it really high? I think that is an interesting question because really people, I find nobody knows what this stuff costs. I mean, it's really hard to know what is a good rate per seat for all sorts of things, and people don't know like what are people willing to charge? What's a reasonable price? On the one hand, it doesn't necessarily cost anything. Probably you might feel that way to provide a lot of this because it's all software anyway. But on the other hand, the vendor does have to provide support and all sorts of things. And then, if it's 65 users, are you eligible for um, good support on a lot of different on large numbers of at a steep discount compared to the way an enterprise with thousands of users are? Probably not. But you may be able to find a another vendor who's smaller or has a better product fit, which is less expensive to support, which they can use. So there's definitely a lot of things to consider. I don't necessarily know that the client at paying 20 something dollars a seat was necessarily being ripped off. I don't think that's totally unfair, especially when they only have 65 users. But that doesn't mean you can't get a better deal either. So I just don't like to look at it in terms of you're definitely being ripped off in that example.
Between those 24 employees, they were only using around 1,000 minutes per month of phone services. But RingCentral would not let them downsize the licenses they were paying for because they were under an annual contract. Now, comparing their minutes and DIDs with our Crosstalk Cloud PBX, 1,000 minutes plus 92 DID.
So yeah, let's just talk about the contract part of it. So that is something which people agree to, and people make that decision to sign a contract, and in return for that, they usually get a much better deal. If you can try to sign a 1 year contract, probably won't get as much savings, but if you sign a 3 year contract, you'll get a lot more lower costs. Now, the downside of signing that long-term contract, obviously, is that you're locked in long-term. So if you don't know that you are going to want to use that for the next few years, then yeah, you probably shouldn't sign the contract. But the flip side of this, though, is it does allow the vendor to hire and expand based on the knowledge that it has lots of customers who are locked in and will continue to use the product.
Phone numbers is just about $100 a month. You can see that yourself with our Crosstalk PBX cloud calculator that is available online. So if they went with our solution and then added on 2 actual Zoom rooms, they'd be paying about $300 per month for 24 users, 92 DID phone numbers, 1,000 minutes of calling, and 2 Zoom rooms.
So we can see here, this is a great example of where they're getting much better pricing overall because they're getting rid of a lot of the seats. They're also getting a much better price on each seat. I don't know if um, what the functionality difference is, but I'm sure it doesn't affect the client. I'm sure the client is very happy with whatever functionality is provided with a $5 a month service. And then presumably, I don't know how much support costs or how much support they need. So presumably at $300 a month. That doesn't obviously leave a lot of room for support, but hopefully everything just works, so there's not a lot of need for support.
The same services they're currently getting from RingCentral for over $2,200 per month. And let's be even more generous to RingCentral here. The $300 a month for Crosstalk's PBX plus the 2 Zoom rooms doesn't include taxes. They're usually about 15-20% of the total bill. So
Actually, in this case, we saw that the taxes, fees, and surcharges were more like, you know, 30% or something like that.
let's remove taxes from RingCentral's bill. They're charging them over $256 a month for standard state, local, USF, and E911 taxes. But they're also charging another $256 per month for compliance and administrative costs.
I will note, it didn't really occur to me until now, but in this presentation, I didn't see Crosstalk explain exactly how they calculate their taxes and surcharges. And that's something you should definitely get a new vendor to explain. Odds are they're probably going to be in line with what other people charge, but in my opinion, what other people charge is inflated. And I think we'll see that as we go into it.
Recovery fee. And you might be saying, what the heck is that? Because I had the exact same question. So I looked up the fee on RingCentral's website, and here's the explanation. This fee is used to recover some or all of certain costs that RingCentral incurs, including government-imposed fees such as federal regulatory fee, telecommunication relay service, LNP, and blah, blah, blah.
So I just want to note that this type of thing is in fact quite common. Definitely read this, and then lots of other vendors do this too. And I personally think it's sleazy. I don't agree with it. And I think you should definitely negotiate it and negotiate it away. And you should definitely be aware of it when you're negotiating it, because you need to know that it does affect your total cost of ownership. And so everyone should be transparent about, you should insist that everyone be transparent about all the taxes and regulatory fees, et cetera, which they're going to charge on top of the actual service charges.
Blah, including the costs associated with calculation and payment of those fees and taxes. So basically their accounting, compliance with regulatory requirements, including but not limited to accessibility, numbering, privacy, anti-fraud, caller ID, authentication, dialing, etc. Why isn't that just included in the unlimited plan? I don't know. Number 3, obtaining and managing phone numbers, receiving calls from third-party provider networks, and terminating calls on such third-party networks. Again, should be included in the unlimited plan. 4, certain network facilities and services, certain data centers, and the operation, protection, and maintenance of necessary network infrastructure in the data centers. Your data center costs are an extra fee pawned off onto your customers. Like, again, why is that not included in the unlimited services that this customer has 52 lines worth of? And finally, number 5, filing and maintaining patents, trademarks, and other proprietary rights, and some administrative costs associated with providing its services. Why aren't all of these compliance and administrative fees built into that unlimited plan?
So I definitely agree. That's a great question. All those fees should be built in. It should also be very clear when you're negotiating the contract. I think these are kind of a ripoff. Unfortunately, I think this is pretty standard practice for a lot of firms in the industry to have some sort of fees like this. I do feel like RingCentral's fees might be even more expensive as a percentage than other vendors, so that's definitely of concern. It definitely looks a little sleazy to me. I don't think they're the only ones who do this stuff.
Mom and Pop Engineering had 52 unlimited licenses, right? I have no idea, but to me, it basically just sounds like a BS fee, right? So
yeah, so you definitely have to look out for BS fees. That's definitely an issue for sure.
Take out the taxes and the BS fees from RingCentral's bill, that brings them down to just over $1,750 per month for 24 users who are only using about 1,000 minutes of calling. $1,750 a month. By comparison, if they were on a Crosstalk Cloud PBX with 2 Zoom rooms, they'd be paying less than 1/5 that amount. Over time, Mom and Pop Engineering realized that they were getting overcharged by RingCentral, and they decided to make a switch. They contacted Crosstalk. Now, they had missed
Now, in this case, I would say, I don't know if I'd like the word overcharged. I would say that overcharged might pertain more to what the contract fee is, what it says in contract versus what they're actually being charged. So I think that's more being overcharged. But but maybe I think there's not quite an apples to apples comparison as well for this product, and I guess maybe you could maybe feel more overcharged if you knew other people who were RingCentral customers of the same size were being charged that amount, and that sort of exact kind of product was always way less for than $22 a month or 23, whatever it is, for a hosted VoIP seat. His product definitely sounds a little bit different, and frankly, it sounds like a better match for the client as well. And so there's a lot to be said for that. Sometimes it's not even necessarily being overcharged; it's about selecting the right client, which is the best fit for you.
Missed the annual contract cutoff date a year ago, and they suffered through a year worth of these charges, but now they wanted to start saving money. So our quote to them to keep all their same phones and migrate them over to a Crosstalk Cloud PBX was about $1,350 up front. Basically meaning that we would do all of the heavy lifting, we'd do a full configuration and migration over to their PBX, we'd train their users, and we're going to include 30 days of support after the fact. What this means is that the ROI for mom and pop engineering to switch to Crosstalk was about 2 months. Okay, meaning that by switching to our phone system, they're going to start saving over $2,000 per month starting in month 3.
Too bad. I'm a little confused by this. I could have sworn you said that the initial setup cost would be 1 month savings. So it sounds like an even better deal than what he's saying. So
$2,000 a month. But this story gets even worse. All right. After they signed up for service with Crosstalk and they went to cancel their RingCentral service, RingCentral informed them that no, they're not in an annual contract. They're locked into a 3-year contract. So now mom and pop engineering has to suffer through more than $27,000 of RingCentral services before they're allowed out of the contract.
So it sounds like in this case they were in a 3-year contract. Now, I don't know if this was something the client signed up for at the beginning in order to receive massive discounts. Given the timing of this video, it's 2025 now when I'm recording this, and it sounds like they started in 2020, and he's made this. I don't think this video is that new. So maybe they signed up for a 3-year contract in order to get discounts, and that was the best option they had available at the time. They weren't aware of Crosstalk. They could have, or some other competitor of Crosstalk who also offers a similar product. So they didn't. That was the best option they had at the time, which they were aware of. So they went with that. So there's a lot to be said for that. Now, one thing I will mention though is when you're negotiating contracts, you have to watch out for auto renewals though. So this may have been an auto renewal scenario, may not have been. I'd have to look at the contract, but definitely watch out. Ask for a it goes month to month as soon as the contract is over. Try to negotiate that. Try to negotiate that your prices get locked in. I know that might be a little harder in today's inflationary environment, but still try to give it a shot. Try to, with all your vendors, try to get kind of price protection long term. That creates a good long term partnership. And then also, make it clear, hey, if you guys do us right, we won't have any incentive to leave. So, another thing I might not have mentioned is that in a lot of cases, there's also can be business downturn clauses. So you could also often negotiate saying, okay, yeah, we have all these clients, sorry, all these seats, which we're going to use, but if for some reason or of a good reason, we aren't using it anymore after a certain period of time, we can decrease the number of seats we have. And as long as we're not moving it to another competitor or anything like that, and usually vendors will be happy with that. They just don't want you moving to another competitor, but they understand that if you are trying to have a good business relationship with them and you're giving them all your business in that category, you just aren't using it that much. Then usually they'll be flexible with you. It's definitely worth trying to negotiate that in your contract. So look out for that. Look out for contract end dates and auto renewals.
For 1,000 minutes a month. As for our PBX systems, we don't do contracts, right? Everything we do is month to month, and you can cancel at any time.
So this is great for clients that it's everything's month to month, but a lot of times people could have a month to month option, but it's less expensive to sign a contract because you get discounts, and the vendor likes that because then they know how much money they're going to get and they can, hire accordingly, knowing that they have long-term contracts. Another thing which was good to note as well is when you are shopping new vendors, definitely ask for your current vendors like what the contract situation is. Make sure you get that in writing in like an official format. Just make sure you understand when your contract end dates are. And then that way you won't have any of these unpleasant surprises. And there are instances where people get stuck having both the new vendor and the old vendor. I've heard these horror stories.
For mom and pop engineering company, we told them, like, look, we will delay the start of your hosted PBX services for a year with no penalty. All right, there's no need to make them pay us for services that they're not using.
So in this case, sounds like he did the right thing. He said, we're going to delay starting this until the contract is over. And so that helped everybody. So that's fantastic. Definitely recommend that. Great business practice. And unfortunately, there are, of course, horror stories I've heard to the contrary. So be careful out there, before you sign anything. Make sure you know the old contract end dates so don't get double billed.
So this story is one of many similar stories that I've heard about with RingCentral. What they do to customers is unconscionable, and it's one of the main reasons that I structured my PBX business the way that I did.
So I guess I'm a little confused about what exactly is unconscionable. He doesn't do long-term contracts. I think that's great, but there's also a lot to be said for having long-term contracts. Presumably he doesn't charge extraneous taxes and surcharges. I think that would be correct and noble thing to do. And but I don't know if that's necessarily unconscionable. A lot of businesses do it. I personally do think it's sleazy, so maybe it is unconscionable. But I do feel like I've heard some other things which are much worse in terms of what vendors have done to clients than this story so far. So I don't know if I'm missing something, or maybe I'm just too jaded and cynical from having worked with some really big deals and seen some really gross overcharges, which I consider much more outrageous than this. In fact, I think you can find a video on our channel about how I spent my anniversary dealing with some really atrocious billing issues, and it's just really, really terrible behavior. But yeah, I do definitely understand the frustration of dealing with these big vendors, and I agree with them.
You should own your own phones. You should own your own phone numbers, and you should only be paying for the minutes that you're actually using, right? Not some BS unlimited plan that lets companies like RingCentral get away with ripping off their customers.
So I think the interesting thing about the unlimited plan is that people don't really pay for minutes anymore on the wholesale side, so it doesn't really cost RingCentral anything to terminate calls. Everything just kind of runs over the internet to other people who run the internet. So really the costs are, paying for that IP transit, that internet connection in your data center, your servers and the software, the people to maintain it all, and to also continue developing the software and also the data center footprint. All those things cost money. So those are kind of really where the costs are. So, like a lot of things, it's there are costs, but it doesn't cost anything to make phone calls per se, once you have everything set up. But you do definitely have to pay something to get back the investment on the software. So I think it's more of a question of, sort of what are your options? What are the different products which are out there? And do you think the RingCentral product has features which you want compared to other products that you know about out there? And also, do you trust them to provide a good level of service? I personally would feel like it would be more of a ripoff if the RingCentral product honestly didn't work and they were paying $23 a month or for something which didn't work. I think that would be much more unconscionable than paying that for a product which works because it's not really that bad of a deal if they're getting good support and they're actually using the product. I think part of the problem here was that the client wasn't using the product, but that wasn't necessarily RingCentral's fault because that's what the client signed up for and asked for. And so that's kind of the client's responsibility to right size what they're buying. And then that's one of the things I help with because I do understand that organizations don't have time to deal with this. But I also know it's not really the vendor's responsibility to take care of all these things and really understand the client's business needs. So, but it is time consuming. So that's where I'd like to help too.
So am I biased here? Yes, absolutely. Because I wouldn't want to be treated this way by any company. And I definitely never treat my customers like garbage the way that RingCentral does. So I hope.
So I definitely think that's a strong term to say like garbage. I don't, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe they, you know, lied about what the cost would be, or maybe they, charged them for stuff which didn't work and they knew didn't work. I don't know. It just seems a little strong to me.
Hope this sheds some light onto RingCentral's bad business practices, and I would be absolutely overjoyed to take a look at.
Yeah. So again, I'm not entirely sure what the bad business practices are, but it is true you do definitely have to watch out in terms of contracts and taxes and regulatory fees, and make sure you're signing up for something which you can live with, in the future. And but often these are the best options we have at the time. And it's sometimes it's more a matter of, hey, let's readjust. Now, what was a good deal, when we signed up for it is maybe not a good deal now, but we had no way of knowing that at the time. So I don't think it's necessarily I wouldn't necessarily put that kind of value judgment on it.
Your voice over IP and PBX situation to see if we can help save you money as well. You can visit us on the web at crosstalksolutions.com. And if you'd like to keep this party going, I have.
Yeah, so he offers a free business review, which is definitely a great idea, and that's definitely something we recommend as well. So if you'd like help with your telecom spending and you feel like you're spending a lot of money and you'd like to help save and keep your existing vendor and not feel like you have to get forced to move to another vendor to save money, please come talk to us. We can help you. But also, if you hate your vendor and you want to move and get rid of them, please come talk to us too, because that's also something we can help with. And we'd love to assist you on any area where you're looking for assistance with your vendors on voice and data spending, mobility, all of those things. And we're also happy to talk to you too about other IT vendor services, and we may know experts in other areas who can help you. And so you can go to our website at Berlin Pacific. You can also go to my LinkedIn page. I'm Anders Mikkelsen with Berlin Pacific. And we also have a page here. I'll try to put this link in the description to a telecom expense management easy assessment. So you could, find out just by putting in a few data points, you could, like how much money you spend and answering a few questions, you can find out a bit more about how much money you could save potentially without having to switch vendors or change your services. So love to hear from you. Please check out the assessment and please comment. I'd love to hear your reactions. And hopefully this is a good third party, frank reaction to what this vendor is saying. And hopefully I've been fair. And I thought it was a good video. He makes some really good points, and especially given his position as a vendor, definitely he was right to say, "Hey, come take a look at us. Maybe we can help you." And I think it'd probably be a good fit for a lot of people for sure, especially given the changes we've seen and what people need. So, well, I'm Anders Mikkelsen. I'm signing off, and thanks so much for listening to this. Bye bye.